Okay, good morning, everyone. I think we'll get started shortly. So welcome, everyone, to the Pragmatic Enterprise track. My name's Tom Eggleston, Managing Director at ProofID. I'm leading the track today. We've got some really great presentations this morning. Firstly, we're going to have Paul Heaney, also from ProofID, who's going to talk to us about what a modern identity and access management architecture looks like, where we're dealing with different user communities. Then we're going to have Frank from OCG, who's going to be talking about hybrid identity and what that means, and really crucially these days, what are the implications from a privacy standpoint as well. And finally, we're going to have Jeff Boren from Optimal ID, who's going to be talking to us about how do we handle the reality of authentication with all the different types of protocols that we need to manage, and how do we bridge between those. Hopefully all of these sessions are going to deliver some really useful, actionable insights that you can take back to the workplace when you leave Chicago. So looking forward to it. So without any further ado, can I introduce Paul Heaney, who's going to talk to us about modernizing enterprise identity and access management. Here you go, Paul.
Okay, so good morning. As Tom said, I'm Paul Heaney. I'm the Technical Director at ProofID. So ProofID are a UK-based software and integrator working with a large number of these identity access management vendors. Been working in identity for over 10 years with a mixed background in sort of provisioning, access management and federation. So where we're going to go today, we're going to look at the various flavors of IAM. So we've got to look at the one that we've known for the last 10, 12, 15 years, the enterprise identity and access management deployments, the evolvement of that through integrating partners and working with external organizations, through to the customer base that we interact with, and how we extend the IAM to those individuals. Got to look at not only sort of what does that mean from actually an interaction, engagement perspective with the users, also how that is delivered within your enterprise, and look at the various flavors of how that can be modeled. And then at the end of this, come back with a sort of my recommendations of actually how we want to deploy that within your organization to provide the best approach for your users, and end with a few questions and answers. So enterprise IAM, we all know that. It's been around for a long time. Traditionally, the users here are known about in advance. We've got a good knowledge of that user before they start. So they've been hired, they've been recruited, so you've done a background check, you've got a CV, you've done some paperwork. So you've got quite a large knowledge of this user on day zero. So got that. And we've also got a strong relationship with that user. So that user has come to work for your organization. They're not there for the fun of it. They're there for, at the end of the day, they want to earn some money. They want to help the organization grow and be successful. So we've got a strong relationship with that user. The user kind of wants to be there. The key driver behind enterprise IAM has always been security. We want to make sure the right people have access to the right data at the right time. And then when the user sort of leaves the organization, moves roles, transitions through their life at that organization, they actually get access that is reflective of that, and it's all done securely. So you move roles, you lose access to the version control system. If you move from development to, say, finance, you then get access to the finance system, etc. So here we're looking very heavily at account lifecycle management, driven by a small number of authoritative sources. So in a corporate organization, that will traditionally be your HR system. In other organizations, you're going to have maybe an additional source of truth as well. So if it's a university and education establishment, you've got a student record system. So the information is being driven from a small number of sources to feed accounts in a directory in a number of systems, so into AD, into Moodle, into sort of other lines of business application. We also want to make sure we've got secure access there, so we provide access management into those applications to ensure that there is a secure route into there from wherever the user is accessing. Maybe we perform step-up authentication. We've got restriction on where you can access certain pieces of data. what you can do with that data in certain circumstances, etc. And we've also got single sign-on, so federated authentication, etc. And within enterprise IAM deployment, we're traditionally looking at sort of the technologies around SQL, LDAP, Kerberos. These tend to be the main drivers within an organisation. We then take that on to the partners case, and partners sort of are very heavily, still we're looking at them almost as an extension of the enterprise deployment. We're still looking at providing secure access for these partners. We perhaps need to have a bit more control around them. There is still that strong life cycle. So enterprise IAM has a strong overlap with partner IAM. Obviously it's slightly different and there's slightly different drivers, but very similar. On customer IAM, we don't have that same level of engagement on at the beginning. So there's kind of two broad categories I see of customers engaging with an organisation. You've either got the case of, say, walk-up users, in the traditional case of somebody going to an online retailer to actually want to purchase something. So they kind of walk up and you know nothing about that user on day one. So over time, you acquire information about that user, you step them through the life cycle. So on day one, you've just got their email address because they've shown interest in a resource, in actually getting alerts on the best price for a holiday, say. And over time, they then go and say, okay, I actually now want to go and book that holiday, so you need to get more details about them, you need to get the name, you need to get their address, perhaps you need to get the passport number, etc. So over time, in this case, the user knowledge grows, or the knowledge of that user grows. The second sort of case around customer IAM is where you've got users that you already know about that you're trying to now engage with digitally. So several of our customers are sort of local government organisations, housing associations, where you've already got a list of who your tenants are in your business. You know who's renting properties from you, and now you want to extend online services to those users. So you want them to be able to report issues with the properties, have repairs performed. You want them to perhaps pay their bills online, report special circumstances, etc. So here we've got a large amount of information about them already. Perhaps it's in paper, perhaps it's in a CRM system or somewhere similar. We then want to engage with these users via new channels. So we no longer want them to go to the guy at the desk in the help desk, in the facilities. We want them to engage online. So here we sort of see we've actually got that knowledge of the user, but we don't know anything about their digital life, their digital persona. So we actually then need to link that account to their existing CRM system. Some of our customers, this is very, very easy. They've got one CRM system. In a lot of other organisations, so we're working with a government organisation in the UK, and they've got 27 CRM systems. So there's a CRM system for bins, for actually your bin allocation. So in the UK, we've got a very complicated system of green bins, blue bins, brown bins, red bins, and sort of what you can put in different bins. And it's a strange conversation in a council where the bins are the most important thing you can discuss. I never really thought that heavily about bins, but I've had lots of interesting conversations about them. But there's this piece of software, a CRM, that's managing who's got what bins, what you're entitled to. There's a separate system if you're applying for a liquor licence. So if you want to sell alcohol, you want to open a bar, you've got a separate CRM, but a bar has bins. So you've now got two CRMs. So a customer perhaps has two different identities. Well, you've got one about the address, one about the person, because bins belong to a property, liquor licenses belong to individuals. So we need a way to actually provide a seamless experience for these users to integrate with the organisation and access all their systems in one go with one set of identities. So here we see with customer identity, we're much more driven by, we're still driven by SQL, but there's also additional new protocols coming along, so OAuth, OpenID Connect, sort of NoSQL type databases are much more common in these cases. We've also got the growth of CRMs, social logins, people wanting to actually engage with the organisation via social media. So they want to log in with their Facebook account, or they want to log in with their central government account. So in the UK, we've got a process called gov.verify. So why do I have to set up a new account to apply for a liquor licence? the government already know who I am, so we're going to authenticate with an external identity provider. And also, as the sort of the generations move on, we've got more people wanting to engage with councils, with organisations through through mobile apps. No longer want to get out the desktop and log into a website. We want a simple application, want a mobile app where the user can go in, see everything they're entitled to, and then engage with the organisation through that mobile site, which is less common in the enterprise, but more in the customer side. And we saw that the security was a key driver for the enterprise. For customer identity, the key driver here is actually the user experience. Yes, security is still important, but for the business, when you're selling this to the organisation, actually getting them on board, and actually what we're interested in is giving the customers, the end users, a much better experience. So user experience is key, and we're here to either drive business, so sell more units of our widgets, or to increase our revenues. So we want to reduce the cost. So cost of getting a bin is you've got to ring up a person, you've got an individual sat there who's dispatching it, they're then typing away at a keyboard. If you can do that online, then you can increase revenues and drive down costs, which is increasing those. We've also got strong integration with marketing platforms to actually market to those end users, and privacy is a key consideration within a customer IAM deployment. So from a differences perspective, agility is important with a customer IAM solution. We want to get fast to market, onboard applications quickly, and drive that value. Whereas in an enterprise deployment, it traditionally runs over a longer period of time, is a slower deployment, and takes more time. So we've seen that the drivers, security and compliance compared to business enablement, user engagement and privacy. Another key difference is scale. So with enterprise deployment, a lot of organisations are tens of thousands of individuals. There's obviously some large ones of hundreds of thousands, but you very rarely get an enterprise deployment of in excess of 1 million users. Whereas in a CIAM deployment, actually scale is a big issue. You've got lots of users, you've got millions of users, millions of customers, or potentially millions, and these are going to be very spiky. They've got to appear over time, and they're all going to want to engage around perhaps holidays, Christmas, July the 4th, etc. And on the lifecycle perspective, within enterprise, it's very well defined. A user starts, they get hired, they move through various jobs, and then they leave. They might become an alumni, but they kind of leave. Whereas with a customer system, you've got much more various entry points. They might come in for asking for information, they might come in as a purchase, they might come in already having an engagement with the organisation, and you want to drive that via self-service. You don't want them having to go to a help desk, you don't want them to go to an individual. You want that to be managed entirely through workflows and through the end user. So those are the two sort of key platforms, enterprise and IAM. We then look at how these are deployed within organisations. So we've got the approach of, we've got one monolithic platform. We've got a big IAM deployment. It's got all your users, both customers and your enterprise users. The second is you've got two platforms. You've got an IAM platform for your enterprise users, and you've got one for your customers. But there is a level of integration here between the two. So this may be technical integration. You may have chosen the same products for both. So you may, say, use ping technologies for both customers and the enterprise use cases, and you've got integration there with skills. You've perhaps got federated authentication between the two to leverage the experience. The second, we start to actually separate these out. We've got an enterprise IAM deployment, and we've got an enterprise CIAM deployment. So we've got a good experience for the users. We've got one set of logins for their enterprise use cases and one set for their customer use cases, but the two are separate, probably looked after by different teams in different parts of the organisation. And the fourth is we've got an enterprise IAM, but then we've got siloed customer identity. So every project has rocked up, and we're deploying a new CRM, so we deployed a CIAM solution. We're deploying a bin round software, we deploy a CIAM solution. And this kind of leads to a shadow CIAM deployment, a shadow IAM deployment within the organization, leading to siloing and bad user experience. So that's how we can deploy the technology. So who then looks after the CIAM provision? So there's sort of three key approaches to this. The first is IT manage it, IT drive it, IT own it. We then got a hybrid model of both the business and IT performing both. So the business are involved and IT, so doing different parts of the same process. And finally, we've got the business managing this purely on their own. So with the business case, they've got no IT knowledge, they've perhaps got no engagement with the IT, they've just stood up the shadow CIAM deployment. So those are the three sort of key approaches. My sort of recommendation of how the best way to achieve this is go for an integrated IAM and CIAM deployment. So we might choose the same technology here, we may choose complementary technologies depending on your business. So you may choose, say, Ping for the enterprise IAM deployment, but Gigia for the CIAM deployment. Have those two and provide a level of overlap, of integration between the two to make management easy, to give a good experience. And for the operating model, go for the hybrid approach. So IT understand the technology, IT understand the process, IT have the structures and models in place to handle SLAs, to handle the 24/7 operation. They understand the protocols, the federation, and actually how to stand this tech up. But they don't understand bin round softwares, liquor licenses, all that good stuff. So have the business own the application, own the engagement, so they can actually drive it in a way that engages with the users, provides that brilliant user experience that we're after, but have it delivered by IT. So you've got a strong and stable deployment of the IAM and a leading user experience. So another key driver for this, of having the two integrated, is IAM skills, identity skills are a niche set of skills, as we all know, that trying to have this stood up by the business, they're going to make mistakes, they're going to make a poor experience, they're going to have a potential come with an insecure deployment. So have the two integrated. So key thing is, sadly, a lot of people have gone out there and already deployed their identity systems. We want to come up with consolidating those silos, giving a great experience that the user logs in once and accesses all the information, all the assets they're entitled to. Align the technology, so choose complementary technologies. One vendor may be great for everything in your organization, one vendor may not, so actually choose technologies that are similar. Don't choose a SAML-based implementation for one and then go over and choose something completely different for the second, and you've got a whole new headache of technology to stand up. Choose complementary technologies. Provide a common framework for integration, so provide an easy way for the business to consume your IAM deployment, to pick that up and actually roll it out into their applications. So make it plug and play, provide standard patterns for your organization, and then use business as an enabler. Use identity as an enabler for the business. So this might not play particularly well on the screen, but this is a form we provide as part of our managed service for our customers to easily enable new applications to be onboarded. So this is all that is on the form. This can be given to the business, to the application owner. They simply fill in contact details, a bit of the technical details about how to integrate, and that can be then submitted and onboarded. No need to do detailed business analysis. So simplify the onboarding, and finishing on sort of proposed IAM deployment. So here we've got at the top the traditional enterprise IAM. So we've got it being fed by a HR system into a provisioning system. So perhaps MIM, perhaps Oracle, etc., and feeding that out into a directory with access management single sign-on. The customer is slightly different. We've obviously got provisioning being driven by self-sign-up, user engagement, and having a user repository providing authentication and potentially provisioning into those applications. So I think there I'm pretty much on time, which when I did this before I was 15 minutes over, so it's great. So questions?
Have we got any questions for Paul?
There's no. Yep.
Okay, great. Any other questions? There's one at the back. Here we go. Hold on.
Do you have any comments, advice around organising, around access management, around identity governance as a organisational construct or technology construct? I'll build upon that because clearly all of those three are required in both the enterprise space and the consumer space. So just wondered if you had any thoughts about, if you were to organise around those types of principles, whether it changed your potential architectures or business processes or technology choices.
So I think that the question was around actually bringing in identity and governance into this model. I think this is obviously very key in the enterprise space. One thing that we need to be very careful of is keeping the separation of duties, keeping the two identities separated, so there's no need for, so you don't have a counter employee or an enterprise employee also using the same logins to access their accessing the customer, so you can kind of request and approve your own requests. So there is a strong requirement there, and yes, that might be possible with a centralized sort of governance solution, or we might need to actually separate those out. So the problem you get into with sort of trying to tie everything into one sort of central deployment is it can then become very slow, very wieldy, and you get into a lot of the internal politics and bureaucracy. So something I've not really considered very heavily, sort of bringing the governance side into the CIAM, but there is definitely a need in the enterprise space, the partner space, and perhaps on the latter case of where a user has a contractual engagement with the organisation, so they're a tenant of the housing property, they're a council user. So yeah, that's sort of not really done too much thinking around that one, but that's.
Okay, thanks. Any more questions for Paul? No?
So we'll make these slides available, so you can get actually a copy of this screen and copy this form, etc. So we'll share those afterwards.
Okay, great. Thanks, Paul.
Okay, thank you.